let's get into higher, lower, Hail Mary. The quarterback you're higher on this week is Matt Stafford. We've talked about him and how pleasantly surprised we've been with him. They're going against on the road against Cincinnati. You got him at QB 15. That's 4 above the experts. Both you and the experts have him slightly outside of standard starting spots, but you do like the guy, and I understand why.
Yeah, and part of me wants to bump him into that top 12. That's why I wanted to feature him tonight, because I really think, 14 and 16 points in these first 2 weeks, despite only throwing 1 touchdown. Both games over 300 passing yards, and we've seen the Cincinnati defense, and it is significantly taken a step back this year with no Jesse Bates. They've been getting bombed on so far, and I think Matthew Stafford, such a pleasant surprise this entire offense. They keep the good times rolling in a defense that's giving up top 6 points to the quarterback position so far. And maybe if they can finally keep some pace here, that then it ends up being an even better matchup. Because last year they were a terrifying matchup, bottom 3 for quarterbacks. But it's crazy how just one player, losing Jesse Bates, they're now giving up the 4th most points, over 21 points per game to the quarterback position. And Stafford, I think he's long overdue for that big 3-touchdown eruption here, even without his big gun and Cooper Kupp. Everybody else is filling in so well. So it's only a matter of time until that happens. And I think it happens as quickly as this week.
All right, let's talk who you're lower on. Deshaun Watson against Tennessee. You have him at 19, which seems about right to me. The experts have him at 11, which seems nuts. And we've been saying it pretty much all year. And the guy doesn't look right. I mean, he looks pretty similar to the way he looked last year when he looked pretty terrible. The Browns are surprisingly okay, but it's not because of Watson.
No, it's not. He's scattered all over the place. 2 pick sixes on the night against Pittsburgh, only 13 fantasy points. The QB 27 last week. Look at the Pittsburgh team that got murdered by Brock Purdy in week 1. I have no faith in Deshaun Watson. I understand that Tennessee is definitely the pass funnel of all pass funnels. They've given up a decent amount to quarterbacks, not quite as much as last year. Right now, so far in the season, the quarterback 12th most points to QB. So it is a plus matchup for Watson. But had you taken away that 1 rushing touchdown in week 1, he would have had 11 points that week and likely finished outside the top 25 quarterbacks in that week too. And I know you can't do that. I don't like to play that game. Jerome Ford, if he hadn't run for a 69-yard run, he would have. I don't like that. But Watson has, it's been a while since he's been a true Konami threat. So that did feel slightly fluky to me. I get that this is a plus matchup and a plus pass funnel defense. And I don't think it matters. I think Watson just sucks. I think it's going to go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history. And I wouldn't be shocked if we're starting to get, the bye week coming in week 5 for this team. Remember that rookie in the preseason, DTR? He looked phenomenal. I wouldn't be shocked if we start getting a little bit of heat on Watson and this team decides, maybe we need to turn our eyes to the future with now no Nick Chubb. I'm just not a fan of Watson at all. And it's easy to be low on him, even in a plus matchup. I think he sucks.
Agree completely. Hail Marys this week. You got 2. You got Sam Howell, 22% rostered, going against the Bills. He looked okay against Denver, but I'm convinced that Denver is absolutely terrible. Baker Mayfield going against the Eagles, only 19% owned. That one I'm a little more interested in, actually. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Sam Howell, we'll start with him. We talked about him all preseason, one of my favorite sleepers. I think this offense is only starting to find its gear, and Howell has looked really solid despite that. 16 fantasy points in week 1, the quarterback 11, 21 in week 2 against a solid Denver secondary, the quarterback 14, over 35 points for the team as a whole. I know Brian Robinson ended up having the huge fantasy day, but there's going to be days when Howell throws 3 touchdowns. I'm just so encouraged by Eric Bieniemy and how this offense has looked overall. I just think, as mentioned, Howell has shown some really great composure. He's 3-0 as a starter. I understand the Bills, not the most ideal matchup, the 4th fewest points allowed to the quarterback position, but they haven't really been tested. I mean, Zach Wilson, no thanks. Jimmy Garoppolo got swallowed all day as well. So I don't know what I feel about this Buffalo Bills secondary. And I do think Bieniemy is going to bring it this week. I think they're going to go toe-to-toe. I think this team, the Commanders overall, they might not be a Super Bowl contender, but I think every single week they're going to be in games. I kind of like them with the points this week. I think it's 7.5 right now. I just like the squad overall. In particular, again, I just want to emphasize Eric Bieniemy has turned that culture around offensively, and Sam Howell himself is really doing his part, and they're only starting to find their groove. I think by midseason, Howell's going to be one of those every week starters, and I think it could start as early. They're going to need to chase points against the Bills. So one thing you could say it makes it a plus matchup, and I think they're going to be up for the task and make this game a lot closer and a lot more of a shootout than I think a lot of people expect.
Well, you have very rarely said something any truer than that Washington may not be a Super Bowl contender. You are correct when you say that. They are not.
True, but I think they could be a playoff team. I really do. True, that NFC beast. It's a solid team. I know I just completely buzzed over Baker Mayfield, but remember, I was saying on the podcast this year's Geno Smith maybe, and what makes that connection even better is the fact that David Canellis, he was the Seahawks quarterback coach last year, got this offensive coordinator job, and he's done a masterful job with Baker, 16 and 18 points so far through his first 2 weeks. And he's got Godwin and, of course, Mike Evans going completely bonkers. It is the Geno Smith narrative. Good weapons around him, and he's playing with some real moxie. His teammates seem to love him. And don't forget, the Eagles are giving up the most points to quarterbacks on the year. Cousins put up nearly 40 against them last week. And then in week 1, Mac Jones was the quarterback leader in fantasy points too. So the Eagles, for all their strengths as a front seven, they've been getting destroyed by quarterbacks so far. If any team could just massively turn it around and just shut down Baker, if we're talking about Baker, I get it. But let the man bake. I think he's killing it right now. I'm a huge fan. I love how he's playing. I just like this Bucs team. They're fun to root for. And if you're desperate for a streamer, you can do a lot worse than a guy that has been a top 16 quarterback or 16 or more points, top 13 quarterback in back-to-back weeks to kick off the year. It is this year's Geno Smith that's coming to fruition.
And I mean, I thought Mike Evans was like washed, and he's like one of the top 2 or 3 wide receivers in the league right now.
He looks good, man. He just we're gonna, you know what, we're gonna talk about the Bucs receivers a little bit, but yes,
right. I'm just throwing that out there. Because if you look up top scorers, you're gonna see Tyreek Hill at the top, and then you're gonna see like a group of guys who are like, huh. I didn't think
that's something like cool. Mike Evans, as we all scripted, as we were all planning. We'll talk about these receivers in a little bit. I don't have Mike Evans as my high or lower Hail Mary, only because I've already done him 2 weeks in a row, and all he's done is make me look smart. I should just go back to the well, but I feel boring. I feel boring to do the same thing. So,
we don't want you looking at smarter. All right, so also just a couple of things we're watching, and then we'll wrap it up quarterbacks. I mean, is there any hope for Justin Fields moving forward? I mean, he has a 22.2 QBR rating. It's 31st in the NFL. And then we've got the Chargers-Minnesota game, 2 desperate teams, desperate for wins with big offenses, figures to be a shootout. Should be a fun game between, otherwise maybe kind of inept teams. So we will definitely be checking those out.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.